1. And we are live. Hey guys, what's going on? James here. Welcome back to yet another episode of the MrBucsNation podcast. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Billy, William_Walsh_NFL. You can go check him out at the top of the description. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers, okay? That's the goal. Billy, how you doing today?
Back to backs, James.
Yeah.
Back to backs. This is the start of
A
just
dynasty?
every. Oh, yes, the start of a dynasty.
Okay. Chiefs aren't the only ones who are going back to back starting a dynasty here, okay? Speaking of the Chiefs, Billy, speaking of that, that's kind of what we're going to start off the show today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, right? This is the topic that you had suggested and I don't have the article pulled up, but
You got to pull it up and share it with the people. You got to share it with the class, James.
let me share with the class ranking. It's a Super Bowl ranking, right? Ranking of the Super Bowls. Now, do you remember what it was on? Was it on ESPN or was it on NFL.com?
It was on ESPN.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. One from 58 is by
Yeah.
um Aaron Schatz, I believe. Was the gentleman here. So he went through everybody and he ranked from 1 to 58
Mhm.
the top Super Bowls. Okay? Now I'm not going to show you guys every single thing because this is an ESPN Plus article. We don't want to take away from the exclusivity of that content over at ESPN Plus. So just
Love the word exclusivity. That's awesome.
yeah, so if you want to go and see the whole article, go check out ESPN Plus. I have it. I think it's great. But let's go ahead and dive into this. Okay, so firstly, I mean, actually, this is actually great. It has us go straight to the 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, no, wait, no, wait. That is higher up than the other one, Billy. So the first one that was on this list was obviously the Bucs have 2 Super Bowl wins. And the 2002 Super Bowl. Okay, it is higher up than the Bucs 2021. So the 2020 Super Bowl, Billy, got number 20. Okay, so 2020 got 20. Okay, so that is certainly something.
Boy,
That's
how did
obviously
that work?
sorry.
I said, boy, how did that work out?
You know what? Maybe he just got sick of having to really do the math on all this, and he just really liked the number alliteration to it and just kept it. I don't know, but obviously this is the most recent Super Bowl of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's one that we all know and love in our hearts. It was Tom Brady's first year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a rough start, as it mentions here in the paragraph. They lost 38-3 to the Saints in Week 9. One of the worst Bucs games I've ever watched. It was absolutely awful. Uh,
James, name me a worse one.
oh, uh, the Falcons' loss hurt my soul. It might be the worst Bucs loss I've ever seen. That's
Pretty,
fair. It's pretty
not great.
brutal. They were 7-5 at the bye week, won the final 4 games, went to the playoffs, and this was where, the run becomes epic, right?
Yeah.
This is where the run becomes epic. The reason I say that is because you beat Washington, and that was special because you had Chase Young saying, "I want Brady," you know, I want to get after Brady, and then
And it
you
was the first Bucks playoff win in quite a while at that point.
since it was the first time the Bucs had been to the playoffs since 2007. It was the first playoff win they had had
It's
since the
Super Bowl.
2002 Super Bowl,
Yeah.
which we'll get to that
Yeah.
obviously in a little bit, but that's a big deal. And I
Yes.
think I think at that point, Billy, a lot of people were just happy to be there in Brady's first year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think that is fair to say.
And of course, they beat the first of their great quarterbacks in Taylor Heineke. Who could forget? I remember.
Heineke, though, to his credit, Heineke balled out in that game. He actually gave the Bucks as much, if not more, trouble than the great quarterbacks they would face later on.
It's facts. I mean, it's straight facts. Now, I will say this too. I'll say this. Um, do you remember there was a not a rumor. It wasn't even a rumor, but people were saying on Twitter and on social media at the time that they shouldn't play Mike Evans in this game because it was just going to be an easy dub. Do you remember? Because people forget Mike Evans hyperextended his knee
The week
right as
before.
he got 1,000 yards on the year,
Yes.
and everybody was like, they shouldn't play Mike Evans in this game.
Yes.
And I thought that
Mike
was
Evans
such a
wound up,
I thought that was such a dumb take, dude.
and he wound up going for 100 yards, if I'm not mistaken, right? He had a monster day. Also, in his 100 yards, he had that late deep ball, which basically kind of iced it away.
Yeah.
When Tom Brady found him down the left sideline.
Yeah. So I mean, awesome wild card round game. It was closer than I think everybody thought it was going to be for sure. Then you get to New Orleans. Bucs win. They retire Drew Brees, which is just epic. And I remember me and you talked after this game,
Yeah.
and I literally said, Billy, the season could end tomorrow. I don't even care if they won. The season could end tomorrow, and I'd be happy. And I still hold true to that to this day. Obviously, the Super Bowl win was fantastic, but that season was automatically a success for me.
Yeah, this was the game. I feel like yeah, we talked after it, and I certainly know how you feel about this game in particular. But yeah, this was the week when the Bucs beat the Saints, and I mean they really were in control of the game for a lot of the game. It was a close game, but it didn't feel like the typical Bucs Saints game up until that point. And it kind of lets you know, like, yeah, nobody is stopping the Bucs this year. Like that was the final hurdle. Like Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are great, and obviously Mahomes and the Chiefs. We didn't know whether or not that would be the Super Bowl matchup, but again, a great team. But that was the bully. That was the hurdle the Bucs couldn't get past, the thorn in the side. And when the Bucs just kind of like vanquished that and just put it to bed, you knew, okay, the Buccaneers are not they're not going down. They're just going to keep going through people.
Yeah, I mean, and then you go on to play the Green Bay Packers, the NFC Championship game. So much to that game as well. I mean, in Lambeau, you go in there, you win. A lot of people, this is going to sound weird. I was more nervous about the Packers game than the Saints game. The reason I say that is because in my mind I was like, I genuinely thought I was like, dude, I don't know if they can beat the Saints. Like because we had no proof at that point. We had no proof. So I'd resigned myself to the fact, right? That it's like, oh man, season's probably over. I hate the Saints so much. I hate my life. And then they won. And I was like, oh my God, there's actually a chance. Like if they beat the Packers, they go to the Super Bowl. What is happening? So it's like it's more nervous, right? The closer you get to the actual event itself. Everybody's gonna remember the Scotty Miller touchdown. Everybody's gonna remember going into Lambeau and beating the Packers. Aaron Rodgers' last game with the I don't think it wasn't his last game with the
No,
no, it was not even close to his last game with the Packers.
no.
But it's 31-26. And then they went on to win the Super Bowl 31-9 in a dominant
Yeah.
fashion, Billy. I mean, absolutely dominant against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's something that has not been seen since. That's literally just accurate.
Yeah. I think too when you're talking about the Packers game, that you're talking about right in the peak emergence of playoff Lenny with that Packers game. Because Leonard Fournette, he did score, he played well against Washington and played well against New Orleans, but Leonard Fournette breaking that long run where he hits the spin move and him and Tristan Wirfs are kind of going down the sideline and he winds up, falling into the end zone right at the pylon. That was kind of like that run, I feel like, kind of embodied playoff Lenny of 2020 and that whole playoff run for him. So I feel like that was kind of the emergence of him. This is, that was Sean Murphy Bunning's third consecutive playoff game with an interception, right? People forget, don't forget Sean Murphy Bunting started his career or his postseason career 3 straight games picking off the opposing team's quarterback. So shout out to him. And he was the one who set up the Scotty Miller deep ball that everybody remembers. It was set up by Sean Murphy Bunting getting that interception down the seam. And this was also when Devin White was at his peak. Right now, you're talking about he missed the first playoff game. Remember, he did not play at Washington. Um, but in New Orleans, had the fumble recovery with the stiff arm, and then the second stiff arm when he got the interception on the ball intended for Alvin Kamara. Then goes into Green Bay, again gets the fumble recovery, which sets up the second half touchdown by Cameron Brate, which kind of really like that was the icing. Even though there was a lot of football left after that, and the Packers did battle back to make it a very close game, at least on the statistically speaking on the scoreboard. It was 28-10 at that point. The Bucs dominated the first half, and then the second half, the Packers started with the ball. Jordan Whitehead forces that fumble. Devin White scoops it, and the Bucs immediately cash it for a touchdown. That was like coffin nails at that point.
Yeah. No, I mean I agree. Um, and then again, the Super Bowl. I mean, look, it's what got Todd Bowles' head coaching. It's not the only thing that got Todd Bowles' head coaching job, but like, if you want an example of what a Todd Bowles defense can do at its absolute peak, go watch
Yeah,
that Super Bowl. I mean, that's just the peak of Todd Bowles' coaching ability. Is that fair to say?
yeah, that was Tom Brady, he felt like Tom Brady had to win MVP because just aesthetically and the story of the entire season culminated with that moment. But you could have given MVP to so many different people on the Bucs defense. Devin White could have been MVP, 12 tackles, interception, TFLs everywhere. Levante David, although relatively like not a flashy statistical game, taking Travis Kelce away, could have been MVP. Shaq Barrett could have been MVP of the game easily. Definitely a defensive member of Todd Bowles' defense could have easily been MVP. I mean, Bowles himself, if a coach would have been eligible for the award. At that time, people forget, like, and even really like you talked about still to this day, that was not thought to be possible. When that happened and the Bucs won, there was nobody thought, even if you were of the mentality that yeah, the Bucs could sneak this win, you thought, oh, it's going to be a shootout. Brady's going to have to carry the team. It's going to be 38-35, or maybe even 24-21. There was nobody who was thinking the Chiefs would be held out of the end zone without a score. Even as garbage time progressed, they could not find their way across the goal line. Mahomes, a horrendous day, right? 497 yards he had total scrambling, two picks, just a brutal outing for the Chiefs. And yes, I would say Todd Bowles' crowning achievement as a coach in the NFL.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey said that was the best team he had ever seen. I think he said that on the New Heights podcast. Even after that, the Chiefs went on to win two more Super Bowls after that. So
Crazy.
it just goes to show the craziness of it, right? Um,
And that
and
was the team at their apex, right? That was Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, right? That was not the Tyreek Hill-less Chiefs. That was when they were unbeatable, right? All, the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, James, I'm sure you remember, every media outlet was confounded with how the Buccaneers would ever dream of stopping both Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Can't double them both. You can't single either one. Look what Tyreek Hill did, backflipping on the Buccaneers during the regular season. I mean, that was just, yeah, that win for sure. The crown, if Todd Bowles will ever get a crown to wear, it is that game.
yeah, and then obviously we're not going to spend, of course, the peace sign to Tyreek Hill. It's been a meme that's been done to death, so we don't gotta linger on it. But it was a great Super Bowl run. Um, and it came in at number 20 here on this list. Now, where in the world was 2002? That comes in at number 14. This was a situation where a lot of people are going to remember this because they beat the Eagles in the final game of the NFC Championship game, right? What they shut down the Eagles stadium is the famous line,
Bet.
right?
Put down the vet.
Yeah, they shut down the vet. Ronnie Barber pick six, beautiful thing. They defeated the 49ers in the divisional round game, which was a great thing to see. And then, of course, in the Super Bowl, very similar to what their victory was in 2020. It was just you went up against Rich Gannon, who was the MVP of the league that year, in the hyper powerful Raiders offense, and you beat the snot out of them,
Yeah,
right?
arguably the best. Underratedly, one of the best receiving cores ever on that Raiders team. You had Tim Brown and Jerry Rice. And even though it's an older Jerry Rice, it's Jerry Rice still, nevertheless. And he did actually one of the only Raiders who really showed up and played well in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I mean, and of course, we don't have to tell you guys how good that team was. I mean, there's multiple Hall of Famers on that team, all on the defensive side. So I mean, no, it was a great Super Bowl, right? Obviously, we're not going to have as much to say because we weren't there. We weren't conscious human beings necessarily to watch that Super Bowl. I think me and Billy were both like 5 years old whenever that Super Bowl happened.
Yeah, it was a
So
little young.
yeah,
Little
so we couldn't appreciate it for what it was, but looking back, it was just about as dominant, if not more dominant, than the 2020 run.
Yeah, it's eerily similar because again, you're playing the Bucs played team from the same division with that was a explosive offense versus really one of the best offenses in the league versus one of the best defenses in the league. Same storyline as 2020, and you had a very similar outcome, right? The Raiders wound up with more points in garbage time. They were able to, cash in some points, but a blowout for the Buccaneers. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is the most. Is that the most turnovers that have ever occurred in a Super Bowl game was by that Bucs defense?
I'm not sure. It does say here that Dwight Smith did have two pick sixes.
Eric Brooks also had the pick six.
Derek Brooks had
Dexter
interceptions,
Jackson was MVP with two interceptions as well.
so that's
That's
five.
five right there. And I know it's the record for most pick sixes in a Super Bowl. I think it's the record also just for most overall interceptions.
Yes, that's very possible as well. So I mean, no, fantastic. Of course, people point to like, well, they did get John Gruden the year after he left the Raiders, and apparently the Raiders didn't really change anything of their offense. But still, I mean, that
And that's
defense,
another, for the record, that's another similarity, though, the fact that the Buccaneers at the time, right, in 2002 or before the 2002 season, they had to trade for John Gruden, give up draft picks. The Buccaneers did the same exact thing for Bruce Arians. Lower stakes, lower draft picks, but still, he was technically the Cardinals had him under contract when the Bucs brought him in 2019. So a very kind of just again eerie similarities between the two teams, certainly.
yeah. So I mean, there you have it. The Bucks had two Super Bowls out of the top 58 in the top 20. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn good in my opinion. I guess I want to see what's number one. I assume it is the.
But let's
Oh,
take guesses. Let's take
I'm gonna
guesses.
say '07.
The Giants?
Yes.
You think the Giants are the number one Super Bowl team of all time?
Now this is ranking the every Super Bowl champion.
Yes, you think the Giants are the best Super Bowl champion ever.
Yes.
That- all
Oh
right,
seven.
I'm gonna go. I'll have to go with the undefeated Dolphins for the
Okay.
70s. Literally never lost.
All right.
Actually, I
Let's.
got to Steelers. It feels like it's gonna be the Steelers of the 70s,
Okay.
but I'll stay Dolphins. I'll stay
Undefeated
Dolphins.
Dolphins are at number 23.
They're undefeated.
Yeah. Well, who is number one? Let's see.
Got to be the
Let's.
Steelers of the 70s.
It is the 1991 Washington football team. There you go. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that. The 85 Bears were number 2, by the way. I guess that makes sense. Um, '04 Patriots were number 7. Where in the world are my '07 Giants? That was a big deal whenever they beat the undefeated Patriots.
Yeah, but I don't know that that was. I don't know that that makes them a great team. Rather, that they just had an amazing game.
I guess that's fair.
Like I don't.
Well, they're not even in the top 40, so I'm gonna stop looking. I've given up. But apparently, I was way off on that one. I liked the story of it, but moving on now to some other Tampa Bay Buccaneers news. Billy, are you ready to dive into all this?
Of course.
A bit of an interesting rumor. Not even a rumor. It's not a rumor, but an interesting thing here that was reported by Jonathan Jones. Dov Kleiman, I believe, also had tweeted this out. Right, is that if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sign Mike Evans by Monday to a long-term contract, they will create $7.4 million in cap space. What are your thoughts and opinions about that, Billy? Because apparently you had a caveat to that a little bit.
Yeah, so that is true, technically speaking. If the Buccaneers sign him, they will save that cap space. But the specificity that is needed is it saves the cap space for 2024. It doesn't permanently save it. It will just push it to 2025. So while yes, in theory, that is a true statement, it's a little misleading. And I wouldn't the concern, like what I've seen a lot in terms of reaction to that, is that if the Buccaneers don't get it done by that deadline, that's a signal that it's not getting done at all, kind of a take. And I don't necessarily believe that the Buccaneers have only up until that deadline to get the contract done. I just think that that is a small detail that I'm sure is on their mind, but I don't think that it really weighs that heavily because either way, that dead money cap hit is coming. Whether they sign him or don't sign him, it just matters when they have to eat it.
It'd still be a good incentive for me though, right? Because I'd much rather have that dead cap next year than this year.
Why do you say that?
Just because I think that there's the names that to bring back are pretty significant next year. Uh, I don't know who their free agents are slated to be next year. Let me take a look at that while we're talking. But it just feels like with all the different names um that are free agents this year with Evans, David, Mayfield, and Winfield, um I would just much rather have it next year when you have free agents, expected free agents where Chris Godwin, Carlton Davis, I mean, you could extend Tristan Wirfs this offseason, but those are your biggest names, right?
Those are huge names, James.
Yes, they are big names. They are. But me and you have already talked about, like what's a bigger offseason? An offseason where Baker Mayfield, Antoine Winfield Jr., Levante David, and Mike Evans are free agents, or an offseason where Chris Godwin, Shaq Barrett, Carlton Davis, Russell Gage, and Tristan Wirfs, who might even get an extension this offseason anyway, are free agents. I
Well,
mean,
to be
you
fair,
tell me.
Levante David will be a free agent again, in all likelihood. Add him to that list. If he comes back, he's only going to come back on a 1 year contract, I would
Mm-hmm.
imagine. Um, but yeah, I agree. You're talking about, you're splitting hairs between huge names versus big names. I agree. It's bigger names this offseason. I just don't know. The Buccaneers' approach this past offseason was to eat a lot of dead money. They were like, let's just get the cap as clean as we can and just absorb the hit. So it'll be interesting to see if they take that approach again and just try to completely clean it up, or if they are willing to look at, like you're saying, some of those names and say, well, maybe it's worth kicking the can down the road like we did a couple years back and make sure we retain some core pieces.
I mean, also at least according to Spot Track, the Bucs are projected to have like $160 million in cap space next offseason. So, you know, I mean, I would just rather we got extra cash that we got a little bit of extra money that we can keep over
Sure.
there. 104, sorry, according to Over the Cap. Yeah, 7.4, you know what? Go over there. It can go over there. It's fine. Now, obviously, that cap number will change drastically by just even the re signings of guys like this offseason, like you said. But I'd still rather have it next year. It's still rather have that next year. But it's an interesting theory. We'll see if a deal does get done. It's just another extra little wrinkle in the contract negotiations. Will it matter? Will it not matter? I don't know, dude. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, we could end this podcast in 20 minutes and then we hear, oh, by the way, they signed Mike Evans to like a mega deal. We'd be like, okay, well, all right, you know,
Might have to come back on if that's the case.
right? Maybe. Speaking of off-season stuff, Billy, uh, the franchise tag deadline's coming up soon, and the
Yes.
transition tag. Not even the deadline, but the start of what they can do. So from starting on February 20th through 4 p.m. March 5th, that is when teams can use the franchise tag or transition tag. Now, there's a few candidates for the Bucs, and the Bucs have not been shy about using the franchise tag in the past. They franchise tagged Chris Godwin before they re-signed him to a long-term deal. Did they franchise tag Shaq Barrett?
Yes, they did.
They did, and then they eventually signed him to a long-term deal. So they've used it a couple of times, and they have some big names. The candidates this year include Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield Jr., and Baker Mayfield as the top three. What are your thoughts and opinions about the idea of using that tag on one of those guys? Do you think it would be smart? Do you think it wouldn't be smart? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there is could be a smart use of the tag there somewhere in that trio. I don't think there is relatively any chance that tag gets used on Mike Evans. I think you could just exclude him from that. If he's coming back to the Bucs, he's coming back under contract. I think Baker Mayfield is an interesting one. I've seen a lot of people talk about the Buccaneers kind of giving Baker the franchise tag almost as a second 1 year prove it deal, but a much more expensive one for Tampa Bay and also Baker Mayfield, you know, lining his pockets a little bit more in his second go around of a prove it deal. I think the most likely scenario is Winfield. Um, I think Winfield Jr. is going to be the toughest one for the Buccaneers to navigate contract negotiation wise, just because he plays a position that isn't historically valued all that much. And, he doesn't play cornerback, he doesn't play edge rusher. Safety is not necessarily a position that rakes in a ton of money. Winfield's argument back, and he's got a very good retort here. Well, I'm the best safety. And maybe just overall in a position by position breakdown, could be the best player on the entire team, at least in the top two or three. So when you look at it from that perspective, I could see a situation where Winfield Jr. is going to come to the table with a certain figure in mind, and the Buccaneers might be a little bit hesitant to go up and reach that mark, and they might slap the franchise tag on him. I just think it'll be much easier for them to come to an agreement with Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, and I think that obviously those three guys are going to be the top priorities for Tampa this offseason. Of the three, Winfield Jr. seems like the one that they'll have the most difficulty navigating.
I don't have the tag values for each position. I wish I did. Um, let me see if I can look it up real quick. But I agree with you. I don't think that um I don't think that Mike
Mike
Evans is
Evans,
going to be a candidate. I just don't. Um I do think the most likely option is going to be um I think the most likely option is going to be Antoine Winfield Jr. I do have the values here. So for safety, it's 17.2 million for the franchise tag. For quarterback, it's 35.9. For wide receiver, 21.6. In my opinion, that is a value. That's a value deal for Mike Evans or Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, that's a value deal. Baker, it's right around where me and you have talked about that contract being. But for Evans or Winfield, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty decent value in my opinion. And I think that in the case of Evans, I just think they'd rather get a long-term deal done. I think in the case of Baker, they'd probably like to get a long-term they would rather get a long-term deal done. Now, you make a great point though, which is have a prove it deal with franchise tag. That, and with that number at 35, we've talked about the comfortability of the Bucs and what number they would want. Kind of lends to that idea. And then
Yeah.
Winfield Jr., that's probably a little bit less than what he's going to end up making in a new deal. So that also is a point to be like, well, okay. You also got to consider that's a full cap hit, right? That's 17 million full.
Mhm.
So the Bucs are going to have to eat a big chunk. What chunk
Yeah.
would they rather eat? A $35 million chunk? Almost 36 basically, let's call it, or a $17 million
That's
chunk? Pretty sure 17
also
million is going to be the one.
yes. And the other issue they run into, I do think when you're referencing the Baker Mayfield and where he'd be at on the scale for franchise tags with 35 million, I think that'll be a very key starting point for contract negotiations because the Buccaneers have the leverage of, well, you could go nowhere and we could just franchise you. So that starts off the contract yearly negotiations then at $35 million, right? Because then Baker's saying, okay, well, if you're going to, that means you're willing to pay me $35 million for this next year. Let's begin there. Whereas, and again, for the Buccaneers, if they get a long-term deal done with Baker Mayfield, even if it is at 30 or $35 million a year, they can disperse it out how they please and minimize where and when and how hard it hits their cap. 35 all at once, that's brutal, right? That's not a great setup.
It's a
And
lot.
Antoine Winfield Jr., yeah, a much more cushiony blow, if you will, to your cap to have to pay that in totality than to have to pay Baker his whole entire franchise tag salary. it's just hard because Antoine Winfield Jr. really is. I mean, he's the guy that makes it go. He plays a devalued position. It's unfortunate, like middle linebacker and safety are kind of like the running back of defense. They don't necessarily get the love and appreciation, but Antoine Winfield Jr. is top notch. I mean, he could not be a better player at his position. I would feel maybe outside of Tristan Wirfs, I think he may be the best player on the team, just overall at doing his job. So I think you're in a bind there for the Buccaneers because you really can't let him leave. You also have a defensive head coach that has put a lot of time into Antoine Winfield Jr. I think they're going to find themselves between a rock and a hard place. I think either way, but it'll just be very difficult, I think, for them to get a deal done with Winfield without him testing free agency, because I believe he's going to want to go see what his market value could potentially be, and the Buccaneers are going to be like, maybe we don't let that happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Real quick, I wanted to look at something. It is positional spending, okay, for the safety position. It's an interesting thing. Yeah, you're right. I mean, just taking a look at the numbers, like there's not a team spending above $37 million for linebacker. Teams are spending 80 million, 40 million, 40 million, 40 million on edge.
Yeah,
58 million is what the Seahawks are spending on their safeties in 2024. So that's pretty wild. Interior defensive line is spent on a lot. O line is spent on a lot, but I mean that obviously makes sense. Wide receiver is spent on a lot. Running back, not a
nothing.
lot.
Yeah,
And then obviously quarterback is a whole heck of a
yeah.
lot as well. But a lot of teams spend on the O line, and some spend on corner. But safety is still, it's up
Right.
there. It's better than linebacker. It is a little bit worse than corner. But defensively, it is I believe it's the second lowest. Linebacker being far and away the lowest.
Yeah. Because it's all about the passing game affecting the quarterback and affecting the receivers. So defensive linemen, edge players, right? They get pass rush. Offensive linemen stop the pass rush. Quarterbacks and receivers are obviously the passing game. Corners cover the receivers. If you don't fall into one of those groups, your value just dwindles, unfortunately, just the way the league is right now. Of course, at some point, the trend will revert back the other way. But right now, that's just the era of football that's being played. And Winfield, he's not your traditional safety, though. That's the thing that kind of works in his favor. If you look at some of his stats, and maybe you could, I don't know if you could pull them up for the people or if we just want to go through them, but if you look at some of his stats, I mean, he looks like he's got video game statistics. He
Yeah,
forces turnovers and makes tackles. He gets sacks at an alarming rate. Like, he's not a normal safety. The way the Buccaneers deploy him, he's kind of just like a weapon X. He doesn't just play one spot. He's not a stagnant ball hawk type of safety. He's around the line of scrimmage. He's in the box. He's one of the most, even though he is the smallest starter on the Bucs defense, he's one of the most sure tacklers that the unit has and has been that since he's been on the team. He's proven to play well in big games. I do believe he has a very legitimate argument to reset the safety market.
yeah. I'm not gonna pull up the stats just because I've talked about them so much here on the channel that I just can't do it anymore. He's very good. He's
Yes.
very, 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 very good. And that's just the reality of the situation. But yeah, I definitive take time. Woo, woo, woo. The Bucks will use the franchise tag on Antoine
Oh,
Winfield Jr.
okay. Yeah, I was waiting for the second part. You got me with that pause.
Yeah, they will use the franchise tag on Antoine Winfield Jr. That is my official prediction.
Yes, because I'd agree with you completely because they can't afford to lose him. They're not going to risk losing him. But at the same time, even if he's the best player, just because of the position he plays, he's going to come in third in their pecking order of who they want to address.
But
Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans will be one and two. Not saying in that order, just in general, they will be one and two. And Winfield Jr., even though he may be playing at a higher level than both of them, he will be the third guy that they get the opportunity to address. And there just won't be enough time to address all three and get contracts done with all three. They're going to have to use the tag.
yeah, I agree. So ultimately, we'll see, Billy. But with that being said, look, we have been talking for 35 minutes. So you know what it's
Uh-oh.
time. So you know what it's time for?
Uh-oh.
We got to end off the show the only way we know how.
Uh-oh.
It's time for an Immaculate Grid.
Is Willie in the chat? That's what I need to know.
I think so. I hope so.
Willie, get yourself ready.
All right, folks. We're here with the Immaculate Grid to end off this show yet again. Are you guys ready for this? Here we go.
For the record, that's the highest score we have ever got is 19.
There we go.
Can we beat it 10?
Now, time for the Immaculate Grid. All right, first one we have here is Colts and Texans. The first one that comes to mind for me is Brian Hoyer.
You started yesterday with Brian Hoyer, James.
I don't think Brian Hoyer played for the Colts. I know he played for the Texans.
You started yesterday with Brian Hoyer.
It's a great name. It's a great guy. Great quarterback. You know?
Is he?
I don't know. He's a longevity. He has longevity. I'll give him
He
that.
does have longevity. Yes, yes, for sure.
He has certainly got longevity.
We do have Willie in the chat. All right.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Well, that is our first one here. Colts and Texans. You then have Colts and Eagles, Colts and Steelers, Titans and Texans, Titans and Eagles, Titans and Steelers, 1,000-yard receiving in a season for the Texans, 1,000-yard receiving for the Eagles, and 1,000-yard receiving for the Steelers.
This seems like it's going to be a tough one, James. I'm not going to lie.
I don't know much about the AFC South, the AFC South, and there are 3 teams that are a part of the AFC South in this list. So this one's a doozy.
This one's going to be,
This one is a doozy.
This one could be tough.
Colts and Eagles, you could do Shaq Leonard.
For anyone who's new here, we're going deep cuts only.
Yeah, it's true.
We're trying to be immaculate, but we're trying to be rare with our immaculate.
Rare immaculateness.
Yes, yes.
So Titans and Texans.
Titans and Texans.
Titans and
Oh, no. Well, Colts and Texans. I'm on the first one.
Oh, you're still on the first. Okay. That's an interesting one.
Rivalry. Texans, Titans. Andre Johnson played for both teams.
He did.
I don't know how obvious that is. That feels obvious. Cortland Finnegan. Oh, he played for the Panthers.
He did play for the Panthers. Is there a running back that played for the Colts and the Texans? Did Frank Gore play for the Texans?
No.
He played for a lot of people there.
Oh, Fitzpatrick played for the Titans and the Texans.
He did. It's a good point.
Wow, this is gonna be so tough.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough one.
This is gonna be a really, really tough one.
Willie says Jeff. I don't know how to say that last name.
Wow. Okay, Willie, that's gonna be an amazing one. Yeah.
Jeff Zaganina?
Willie.
Zagania.
I'm gonna say it's probably a silent Z. Or maybe it's Zagonia.
Zagonia.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
Zagonia.
Colts.
Texans, Rams. It's classic Willie poll right there.
Colts and Eagles.
Outstanding start.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Carson Wentz.
Did Zach Ertz ever play for the Colts?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Colts and Eagles. This is an interesting one. I don't know. Is there a wide receiver that played for the Colts and the Eagles? That's a good question. Apparently you pronounced the name right, by the way.
Willie's on fire.
Colts and Kevin Cobb play for the... Okay. Kevin Cobb played for somebody else besides the Eagles, didn't he?
Cardinals.
Was it the Cardinals?
Yeah, with John Skelton.
Okay.
The John Skelton Cardinals.
Jake Locker, Curtis Painter.
I know. You know what's funny? Did Curtis Painter play for the Eagles too? Where did Curtis Painter go?
I know he played for the Colts for a little bit, and that didn't go well.
No, it really didn't. Oh my gosh.
So, Hank Basket. Okay.
Oh, Hank Basket. Yeah. Okay.
Do you even know who that is? I
Wide
don't.
receiver.
Okay.
Wide receiver. Yeah, I don't know who Hank Baskett is.
Colts
I
and
wouldn't have I wouldn't have
Steelers.
pulled it out, but when you hear the name,
Colts and Steelers. My guess is Eric Ebron.
Ebron.
Who the heck's gonna remember that Eric Ebron played for the Steelers and the Colts?
I just don't watch a lot of like Colts football.
No?
Colts tough row.
Did Charlie Batch ever play for the Colts? Did Byron Leftwich ever play for the Colts?
Shame on you.
Well,
You know, at the top of the chat, I actually noticed that when we started at the very top of the chat, it said high five for Byron Leftwich.
who said that?
I couldn't say, I don't remember who it was, but it was one of the first things when we got in
I'm
there and we
going
were
back
talking
and
about
checking.
football.
I
It
have
was
a oh
like,
it's uh
I can't scroll up that far in the chat. I don't know
I
if you
don't
can
see
make it.
that at all.
Yeah, I can't go all the way up. Oh, right there. Hit the like button. Go Byron Leftwich.
Oh, Mikey. You know what? That's not surprising. Mikey loves to stir trouble.
Well, he just knows Byron Leftwich is your guy.
Yeah, he just knows Byron Leftwich is my guy.
Yeah.
Colts, I want to personally put Eric Ebron, but
All right, if you feel good about it, James.
well, I'm not hearing you say anybody, Billy.
I I don't have anybody
At
that
least
comes
I
to
got
mind.
a name.
You do have a name. I can't take that from you.
So I mean, you know,
Yeah, I just the Colts is just a team that I don't like. I don't visualize players on the Colts enough, apparently.
it's fair. It's fair. Titans Texans could say Andre Johnson.
Right.
Did Darius? Oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess he did. Darius Hayward Bay. We'll see.
Wow, nice pull.
9%.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Was Eric Ebron less? We'll never know. We'll never know. Did Kerry Collins play for any of these teams? Eagles, Steelers, or Texans? Didn't he play for the Texans? Did David Carr play for Did David Carr play for the Titans?
I don't think he played for the Titans.
Okay. Did Vince Young? Oh, Eagles, Titans?
Vince Young. That is, yeah, well, that's
Oh my
possible.
God, I love Vince Young.
You love Vince Young?
Dude, Vince Young's my guy, dude.
Why is Vince Young your guy?
He was just, I remember when I was younger, I just liked Vince Young. Great name, cool quarterback.
I guess. Okay.
He was just cool.
Fair enough.
I mean, was he good? No, but he just seemed cool to me. I was like, Vince Young.
Was he good? Yeah, he was cool.
I played as him in Madden growing up. Oh, I would always get him on my team. I'd be like, I have to have Vince Young.
Where did like Lendell White play after he was done being a Texan?
I don't even know who Lendell White is, Billy.
What?
Who is Lendell White?
Lendell White is Smash and Dash with Chris Johnson and Lendell White. He was the power back.
Oh, that's fair.
Oh, well, DeMarco Murray played for both these teams, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The Eagles and the Titans, he did.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. I don't know how obvious that is, though. That might be too obvious.
It might be a smidge obvious.
Oh, dang it, never mind. Connor Barwin is Texans Eagles.
Um.
Oh, James, I got a good one for Titans Steelers.
Okay.
We could jump around a little bit. I
Yeah.
think this one is up there. This feels like a Willie pull, a Willie quality pull.
Okay.
Cody Sensabaugh. No, it's Ty. Coty. The corner with safety. It's Coty. His like Gerald Sensabaugh's like younger. Oh yeah, yeah.
Look at that.
He's like Gerald Sens. Remember Gerald Sensabaugh, the DB?
Yeah.
Like his younger brother, I
Yeah,
guess.
I remember Cody Sensabaugh.
Okay, yeah.
Bernard Pollard. Oh man,
Ooh, let's go.
remember Bernard Pollard.
Nine.
Bernard Pollard was cool. Look,
Who put Pollard?
I have my Vince Young right here. Eagles type. I'm just throwing it out there. Throwing it out there. He's right there.
Listen, MK doesn't care about exactly how much it costs. Need to re-sign Ryan Neal. Couldn't agree more.
I've got a signed shirt of Ryan Neal's. So
Couldn't agree more.
I'm for it.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, why not just use the franchise tag so we don't even have to worry about it? Just lock him up.
Well, it was only like 16, 17 million. Yeah. Keep
Worth
him.
every penny.
That's a deal. He's worth at least 30.
.09.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Bernard Pollard would
All right, we
knock your
gotta finish
block off.
strong here.
Dude, Bernard Pollard was a beast of a safety.
We got a shot here to have a very
Good score.
yeah, we gotta finish strong. The pressure is now officially on.
1,000 yards receiving in a season, so it has to be with these teams, by the way.
Okay. Okay.
It has to be. Yes.
Ooh, okay. Um, all right. If we but there's like I feel like there's a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers, but they're all in recent memory. I don't know which one of them is gonna be the least obvious.
I think
You
people are going
know?
to say Antonio Brown.
Of course,
I
yeah, we
think
can't.
people are going to say Pickens. I don't know if anybody would say Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know if anybody would say Mike Wallace. Did he have 1,000?
Hines Ward,
Hines Ward.
Flex.
Plexico Burris.
I don't know if Heath Miller ever had 1,000 yards, but I feel like he's kind of obvious anyway. Did Le'Veon Bell ever have 1,000 yards receiving?
I don't
Because
think
that's a
so.
good pull. He's a running back.
I don't think so. Eagles. AJ
Alshon Jeffrey. Did he ever have a
Alshon.
thousand?
Oh, that's a good question. He was hurt a lot in Philly. Uh, Deshaun Jackson would be one that people would guess a lot. Terrell Owens would be
Yeah.
one that people would guess a lot.
Right, right, right.
Um,
Oh my gosh. Did Riley Cooper?
I was thinking that. I don't know.
Who's the other?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say there's no way he did.
I don't know. What about that year? Riley Cooper played that one year with Chip Kelly and he was immaculate. And that's a purposeful pun.
I don't think he did though. I don't think he
What
did.
what about Kevin Curtis?
Kevin Curtis?
You remember Kevin Curtis?
No.
Oh, I don't know if Kevin Curtis ever got 1,000. Oh, but Brian Westbrook.
The running back?
I like the idea of putting running backs in because I don't think people are gonna think running back.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's pretty unlikely that a running back would get 1,000 yards.
I don't think it's that unlikely.
Receiving.
I don't know about that.
Rushing, I'd be there all day, but receiving,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Westbrook was a receiving halfback in the Andy Reid system. He was the original, the OG, which
Would
then became LaShawn McCoy and then became
would
Jamal
Steelers wide
Charles.
receiver John Stallworth be too obvious?
Did he? I see. Yeah, Lynn Swan and John Stallworth I thought of, but I'm just like, did they throw the ball enough in the 70s for those guys to get 1,000? Like, obviously, there were championship teams, and those were the star receivers of those teams. But I, I'm not sure that they threw it enough to like. Was 1,000 yards receiving back then was not what it is today. That was a challenge.
I want to go with Emmanuel Sanders.
All right, James. James is going Emmanuel Sanders.
What do you think? I am
You
waiting.
sure you don't want to go with Limas Swede?
Who is Lima Swede?
No, I'm just playing. He was a wide receiver for the Steelers, but he was not good. He
Okay.
definitely didn't get 1,000 yards.
Did
I was just
Jarek
being
Stallworth? Okay, we'll go John Stallworth. We'll stay true. Is it? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well done. Well done.
Titans and Eagles. We got to come up with somebody. Mariota? Technically,
Marcus Mariota. There's got to be like some running back that is wait, you think that's better or worse than DeMarco Murray? All
I think people are going to guess DeMarco Murray.
right.
I want to say
Who
Vince Young.
I'm trying to think of like other
Actually, I don't want to say Vince Young because I don't know if he actually played in a regular season game. I don't think he did.
Oh, you can't just be on the roster for regular season. You can't be a
You have to
backup for.
play in a game.
You have to be active in a game. Oh wow.
Yeah. What's up,
Who would
Josh?
have thought? Who would have thought that Cody Sensabaugh played a game for the Steelers?
He played games for the Steelers. Yeah.
I would not have thought that.
Um. Eagles 1,000 yards receiving. Texans 1,000 yard receiving. You know what? I'll put DeMarco Murray, Billy. You brought it up a couple of times. How confident do you feel?
I'm nervous he's gonna be high. I know he's there. I'm just nervous it's not gonna be like a low pull. I see Latavius Murray.
He
Nah, he didn't play for any of these teams.
did
I was
not.
curious. I just don't know how he's recent. That's what makes me nervous. We always do better when we pick people from like 2005.
Yeah, it's true.
But that's like the forgotten decade of football. Nobody seems on those.
Yeah.
The problem. So who's an old Titans player? The Titans were formed what in the late 90s,
Yeah.
mid 90s.
Did Warren Moon ever play for the Eagles?
I don't know if Warren Moon actually ever played for the Titans.
No, he never made it that far.
We played. Well, yeah.
Jason Babin, Eagles and Titans.
There it is. That is the poll we needed. Wow, that is 100. That's a fire one. That is so good.
Yeah,
You know what I also just thought of? Javon Curse we could have put in.
yeah, it's true.
But Jason Babin's
All
fantastic.
right,
That's
final
well.
two, Billy. 1,000 yards receiving for the Texans. 1,000 yards receiving for the Eagles.
The Texans, I think it's going to be tough to get a high rarity. They haven't been
They
around that
haven't
long.
been a team. They became
Yeah,
a team in like what? Oh, 07?
2002, I think.
Yeah,
2003.
2002.
Hasn't been a long time. Obviously, Andre Johnson.
D
Obviously,
Hop,
D. Both
Nico
of those are
Collins
easy pulls. Nico Collins.
for more recent.
I'm trying to think. Who was the tight end? They had a good tight end when it was Andre Johnson, Arian Foster, Matt Schaub. Who was the tight end? Was he good enough to get 1,000 yards? Who was that?
I do not know.
Was it Joel? It wasn't Joel Dreesen, I don't think. Who was that tight end?
I do not know. Eagles, you've got Alshon Jeffrey. You've got Deshaun Jackson. You've got Devonta Smith. You've got AJ Brown. You've got some names there.
Yeah, I don't think you could.
Did Zach Ertz ever have 1,000?
Can't go with any of those recent guys. What about Brent Selleck?
The tight end?
I don't know if he had 1,000 either. I just feel like Zach Ertz is too. I feel like he's too like in the thought.
Well,
He's too
Willie
made
says Harold Carmichael.
the giant.
Oh God, I can't
You
type.
gotta type. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Harold Carmichael, 6%. One more.
Willie.
Texans. I I
Who
don't
was the tight end? Willie, do you know who the tight end was?
Did
When it
don't
was Gary Kubiak's offense. Gary Kubiak, Matt Schaub, Arian Foster, Andre Johnson, and there was some tight end there who was pretty decent. He might not have gotten 1,000 yards anyway. I'm just like trying to think of names that are not obvious because the Texans they don't have a lot of.
they're too new.
Yeah, they're just too new,
Is
right? They don't
bull
have a
crap. Get older, Texans.
unless do you think yeah, they don't the Oilers would beat the Titans if it was an Oilers player.
Right. James should play center and Billy performs and sings a Billie Eilish song. Mikey. I'll play center. I'll do it. Billy, you gonna do a Billie Eilish song?
I only know one.
Which one's that?
Uh, Bad guy
Okay. We can
for
work
sure.
we can work with
Yeah,
that.
we'll build something around that. It seems like a good idea for sure.
Yeah. Oh, Texans.
It's a shame, James, because everything is so beautiful on this grid, and there's just no Texans player that's going to be like 1%. Just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's true.
What about okay. We got to lock in. What about somebody like in the Chris? That's the name. Joshua, the Bucks fan, Logan. That is the guy. Owen Daniels is the guy I was thinking of. Does Owen Daniels have any 1,000-yard receiving seasons under his belt? That is the
It
question.
has to be at the Texans, though.
Great job getting that, pulling that name. I couldn't think of it. I'm like, I'm picturing the guy, and I remember the offense. Owen Daniels. That's the guy. It's hard because they just don't have like it's just tough because they don't have an extensive history.
They do not. That's the worst part.
Right. So when you're going for these deep pulls, it helps to kind of get guys from like eras of football that aren't super modern or super famous. And the Texans are literally only existing in modern football.
Did Cecil Shorts have 1,000 yards for them? Do you remember Cecil Shorts?
I do, James. How long did he play for the Texans, though?
I don't know, but I loved him when he came to the Bucs.
Cecil Shorts.
I remember he went to I think he went to the Texans. He was with the
Yeah,
Texans
no,
before or after the Bucs.
he was definitely on the Texans. I just don't know. 1,000 yards. Did Cecil Shorts really do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. This is one for the chat. I need the support. Um, Eric Moulds. Was he on the Texans or was he on the Bills? Was he on both teams? Was he on just the Bills? Eric Moulds. That's like an early aughts guy right there.
Hmm.
Algie Crumpler. That is a name right there. Algie Crumpler played for the Titans.
Hmm.
I agree we should get a kicker early. Very well said. We forgot to even mention franchise tag Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah. Could do that.
We didn't even look up how much kickers make on the franchise tag.
Cecil didn't have 1,000. Sad.
Bad research by us.
Yeah, I don't know how much the franchise tag is for kickers, to be honest with you. It's one of
Eric Moulds, guys. Is Eric Moulds, was he a Texan? Was he just a Bill? Did he play for both?
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you know who Eric Moulds is?
Yeah, the name's familiar.
Okay.
The name's
What are,
familiar.
what are your thoughts on Eric Moulds?
I don't know if he played for the Texans though. I
Well,
feel like I
that's
remember
fair.
him playing for the Bills.
He definitely played for the Bills. Like when the Bills had those like old, um, like the weird.
Try Owen Daniels.
I don't know if Owen Daniels ever got 1,000. That's what concerns me. The question is, do we risk it all or do we play it like,
Safe.
yeah, like we know we could put a name up there that's going to hit and we could be immaculate.
Brandon Cooks is an interesting name.
Did Brandon Cooks,
Did he have a
did he
thousand?
get 1,000 though? I feel like Brandon Cooks had 1,000 yards for everybody up until he got to the Texans. Wasn't he upset? I thought I remember a rumor
Could go Nico
about Brandon
Collins.
Moulds was oh, all right. Moulds was a Texan, but he didn't have 1,000 in Houston.
Hmm.
Fair. Thank you, Willie.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, the Texans just don't churn out. They're just too new.
I think we
All right.
go. I'm
So
gonna
if we
say
got
Nico.
Andre,
I'm gonna say
if we got
Nico.
if we got Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Nico Collins, you think Nico Collins is the least obvious of that?
I would say so.
He's the newest though.
Yes, but people are gonna think of the big names. They're gonna go to D Hop and Andre Johnson right away. I feel like.
The rookie did not get 1,000. I can't think of his name now. We talked to him at the Senior Bowl.
Did we?
Or I couldn't talk to him at the Senior Bowl. Remember, I wanted to talk to him, but he never came over.
I don't remember. I don't remember. I do remember you couldn't talk to somebody, but I don't remember who it was.
The rookie. Um,
Well, that's a lot of people.
The rookie wide receiver on the Texans, the little guy. He caught so many touchdowns. He's so good. He got hurt right at the end of the year. Who is the number two receiver on the Texans? That's the question. He's the number two guy.
I don't know.
You're killing me.
I don't know.
You're killing me, James.
It's not my fault. You're the one who didn't try to interview the guy.
OJ Howard played for the Texans.
I don't think he had 1,000.
Tank Dell. Thank you. Yes. Did Tank Dell get 1,000 yards?
I don't know.
Is he less obvious or more obvious than Nico Collins? That was the guy I was trying to talk to. That's Josh again. Josh is reading my mind with these Texans picks. He had Owen Daniels.
He might be more obvious. Okay, we're gonna put a name. We got to put a name. We have to.
Put it to the chat. You got to ask the chat.
Chat, we need a name. Give me a name.
We need the least obvious name, chat.
The least obvious name that you feel like got 1,000. We got to put a name down. So we can end off this grid.
And right now, this is a heck of a grid. The performance across the board is beautiful. We got what, 1, 2. We got 3, 4 people under 1%. That's pretty smooth.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's not bad.
It's just got to be what? So we're looking at Nico Collins, DeAndre Hopkins, Andre Johnson. And I guess, yeah, I mean, Nico Collins. I just feel like anybody who plays fantasy football would pick Nico Collins. Anybody who doesn't would pick one of the other two.
Tank Dell had 709 yards.
That might sound like Willie's cheating right there. Very, very specific number to just pull that off the top of your head. I don't know, Willie, you've been pretty good, but that is really, really specific.
How about that?
Yeah, he had 709 yards, 83 catches, and 5 touchdowns. I just know these things.
That is a bold memory. That is a bold memory. I'm putting Nico Collins. I'm making the decision.
All right, Nico Collins for the win. Let's be immaculate.
There we go. 26%.
26. You know what, though? That's not bad. What was our total score? A 48? All right, that is our new third highest.
I want to say there were four players who had 1,000.
And we had 3, so we're missing one.
Who was the one we were missing? Get out of here. DeAndre, Brandon Cooks.
It was Brandon Cooks.
It was Brandon Cooks.
Good call by the chat.
So that would have been tough anyway.
Yeah, there's just not a good answer for that.
Yeah, there wasn't a good answer we could have had.
Yeah.
In terms of the highest answers, Nick Foles, Colts and Eagles. There you go.
AJ Brown was all over this.
Yeah. Apparently
look at the top row. The top row is all Texans, the guys we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. AJ Brown was the entire second row.
Yeah.
At least there was some.
Eric Ebron. He was the number 1 answer, James.
Thank God we didn't put Eric Ebron.
Your boy.
Wow. People remember him more than I thought. But only 37% of people got that one right, though. So 39% got the Titans Colts. I want to look up something. I want to see if Kerry Collins did play for. He did not. Ryan Fitzpatrick did.
Wow.
Donta Foreman.
Okay,
that would have
been a good one.
Yeah. Did Kerry Collins play for the Steelers?
I don't think so.
Josh Dobbs did, and the Titans. Wow.
Who is Kent Nix?
We'll never know.
That is a name I've not heard.
Marcus Mariota. Vince Young would have been on there. Yeah, my guy.
Incredible. Oh, he played in a couple games for the Eagles.
Yeah, man, look at that. He had a 1-2 record, 4 touchdowns, 9 picks. Great. He's that dog. Wow. That would have been fun. I would have liked to have seen what the percentage was for Vince Young. But look, with that being said, Billy, it's the end of the show. Do we have any final words before we go ahead and head out of here?
No, this was a fun one. For
fun.
sure. And I'm glad we redeemed ourselves a little bit on the Immaculate Grid from yesterday.
We did redeem ourselves a smidge on the Immaculate Grid. Yeah. So I am happy for that. But guys, go subscribe to Billy. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers. Words are hard. Go check him out. The link is at the top of the description. Would greatly appreciate that. And as always, guys, we'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. Go Bucs. See you guys soon.